So, you know, waiting is a hard thing to do with it. We were driving back from Billy Graham Library last night. I was reminded of how bad the traffic gets backed up to get off 85 going to Mechanical. Going southbound on 85, traffic for the exit where Hillbillies is backed up all the way to the bridge. And people were on some median just trying to get off the exit. It was crazy. And poor Google, if you ever use Google Maps, this is the thing on smartphone especially, you know, it shows you where traffic stops are. There's like an orange or a green, or it's an orange or a red is, red is like stopped. But it was red around there, and there's a reason why. But waiting is a hard thing, and there's one industry in North Carolina where waiting can be a good thing in some ways. I don't know a whole lot about the Christmas tree industry. I've never sold a Christmas tree. I actually bought a Christmas tree. Actually, I don't think I've ever personally bought a Christmas tree, except for these fake ones. But North Carolina is a leader in the Christmas tree industry. Oh, Christmas tree, oh, Christmas tree. Let me read some stats to you here. North Carolina is currently second in the nation in Christmas trees. North Carolina has an estimated 50 million Fraser fir Christmas trees growing over 25,000 acres. Ashe, Avery, Allegheny, Watauga, and Jackson counties produce 88% of North Carolina's Christmas trees. Like I said, North Carolina ranks second in the nation in Christmas trees harvested, produces over 19% of the real Christmas trees in the United States. The whole United States, our little part of the state, even the mountains area, produces that much. Fraser firs represent 96% of all the species grown in North Carolina, and Fraser firs are shipped to every state in the United States, as well as the Caribbean islands, Mexico, Canada, Bermuda, Japan, and other points of the world. Isn't that crazy? See, the Christmas trees in the United States, there's 350 million Christmas trees growing in 170,000 acres of land in the United States. That's a lot, man. Here's the Christmas tree, top 5 U.S. Christmas tree states in order. Oregon, North Carolina, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. North Carolina produced 4.3 million trees in 2012, and up to 39% of 2007's production of 3.1 million. North Carolina produces a lot of Christmas trees. But the Christmas trees, they're not something you can grow quickly and produce from year to year. It takes a little while for a Christmas tree to come maturity, doesn't it? You know me, I've got a black thumb. I'm not very good with plants, but I do know this, and I looked it up to confirm it. It takes a Christmas tree several years to get to where it's tall enough to sell at a decent price. In fact, some of the stats I found online, I think it was in the Cooperative Programs website, I believe it was, it's up to 15 years for a typical Fraser fir to grow 6 to 7 feet high, as few as 4 years for that growth. So the average is about 7 years for a Christmas tree to grow to a 6 to 7 foot high, a good height to sell and to put in your home. 7 years. So, you know, we live in a society of instant gratification, don't we? We want things now. You know, I get perturbed if I go to a fast food place and I don't get my food immediately. Imagine, you know, that waiting process on waiting on a good Christmas tree. So those farmers who farm in the tree industry, they have to plan things out, and they have to have a little patience too, right? Well, we live in a world where we want things now. But good things comes to those who wait, doesn't it? You ever heard that old axiom, good things come to those who wait? Well, God one day will bring good to us. We just have to wait. One day we'll have a king to rule over us who is just, who is righteous, who is understanding and counsel, makes fair decisions. And he's a ruler of peace. We'll have to wait. You see, Israel had to wait. Israel and subsequently Judah, they trusted in the monarchy, and they had good kings and bad kings. It's like a broken record. We talk about this all the time, but it's true. They had good kings and bad kings, and eventually the Davidic line, the line of David that would have been chosen by God, was cut off by the exile. The tree had been felled. It was cut down. The Babylonians cut down that tree very much like cut down that line very much like a tree. And Judah, from the first time of the Babylonian invasion onward, did not have a Davidic king ruling over them. The tree was cut down and they had to wait. Now we know, according to the Gospels, that Jesus Christ came. And He came as a king. Not the type of king they wanted, but He came. They waited on Him, and they kind of missed the point. They got Him. But we know that He's not here ruling directly now. He'll rule one day soon. You see, we have to wait for this king, this almighty king to come back. A king who was born in a manger or raised in a manger, who lived a poor man's life, who traveled around like an itinerant preacher, preaching to those who would listen, healing and casting out demons, who was a bit of an outcast in some ways in his society, who died a criminal's death. He'll come back one day as a mighty king riding a white steed, bringing judgment about. He'll bring judgment with him. But we must wait. You see, we're left with, at least in this passage, a stump. A stump. Isaiah chapter 11, verse 1 reads, "There shall come forth a shoot from the stump of Jesse, and a branch from his roots shall bear fruit." You see, the prophet Isaiah wrote this passage in a time when they were left with a stump. Their hopes, their expectations of God and God ruling over them, this Davidic line that God had entrusted to rule over them, had been cut asunder, torn from them. And they were waiting one day when God would restore His leadership directly through a king for them. Similarly, we as Christian people, we live in a world that's askew with politicians who, they play politics and they fuss and they fight and they argue. And I was talking to somebody earlier about having at least one wise person in D.C. would be nice with it. Having one wise person in Raleigh probably be nice. But we live in a world where politicians aren't necessarily what they need to be. And we as Christians wait for one day when the divine ruler of Jesus Christ will come one day as a king who will restore things and set things up. But we're left until then with a stump. Now a stump, the image of a stump, I can see in my head a tree stump sitting there. There's no tree trunk, there's no branches, no leaves. There's a stump with its roots. Full of potential. May not look like much, but there's a lot of potential there. You see, this stump is a symbol of both a reminder of David's humble beginnings. God choosing a man who was lowly, a sheep herder, elevating him to a high rank and entrusting him with leading a great nation, a man after God's own heart. See, this humble stump reminds us of that. It reminds us of the babe born in a manger, born to a poor family in a podunk part of the Roman Empire. But with that stump is a lot of great potential with it. With King David, there was a lot of great potential that God saw. Now, think about it. King Saul fit the part, didn't he? King Saul was a big, tall, strapping man. If you think about, my kids love Disney, the Beauty and the Beast. You ever seen that? And there's Gaston, the guy who wants Belle's heart. He fits the part. He's big, he's strong, and he's muscular, and he's hunky. All the girls swoon over him. But Belle falls in love with the Beast. It turns out to be a hunky and strapping guy, until he turns out that way. He's a nasty, gnarly beast. But there's potential there in those that have the most humble of origins. David wasn't the one that looked the part. Jesus Christ, born in a manger, wasn't the one that seemed to fit the expectations of the people. There's potential there. You see, our world may not look like much today. We're left with a stump that seems to be maybe a little rotted. Our world is broken. Our politics are broken. Our leaders are broken. Even our churches are broken. Church leaders fall and they break our hearts with all the immorality. It's sad. I turn on the news and about every month I see some sort of rumor of some minister who's done something, stolen money, or done some sort of sexual deviant behavior, while in the pulpit. Even my mom's home church, the church I grew up in, there was an issue with a minister doing things that are inappropriate with a female. We live in a world of brokenness. The stump's there, and it don't look like much, but God can raise up something promising, something important from that stump. You see, in that stump remains all the potential, divine election, and God can bring something great from it. That potentiality is something we have at Christmas Eve. We're reminded as we try to light the Advent candles that one day, soon and very soon, as the hymn says, Jesus is coming back to set up His rule over this earth, to crush the forces of evil, to break the devil finally, as Revelation reminds us that soon and very soon, that one day when the new heaven and the new earth come to be, when crying and tears will be no more, or at least tears of sorrow, I should say. It might be, surely be tears of joy. One day, soon and very soon, He'll set up His governance. He won't look like any of the rulers, any of the presidents or governors or council people we've ever met before. He'll be something different, the right type of king, the right type of ruler. This passage gives us a little bit of insight on what that shoot out of the stump, that hope, looks like. First, we find His character over in verses 2 through 3. We see a little bit about what His rule will look like and how it contrasts with the brokenness of our society today. And the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon Him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. And His delight shall be in the fear of the Lord. He shall not judge by what his eyes see, or decide disputes by what his ears hear. That's a lot different than our politicians today, isn't it? Notice some of these catchphrases here. Wisdom, understanding. Wisdom is the quality that enables a king to make a good judgment. Not by what the king lackadaisically feels to the moment, what the kingdom sees with his mind, if you will. And wisdom is not something that just you can learn in a book, per se. It's something gained through experience. Understanding is intellectual insight to the events and persons that are needed to establish an appropriate policy. Understanding also, I think in some ways, carries a connotation of commiserating with somebody. Somebody that's been in the shoes before of somebody else. You know, our president was, he may be a good president, that's for you to decide. He may be a bad president, that's for you to decide. There will be a vote, I'm sure, soon enough to decide whether he gets to stay in office or not, despite what's going on in Washington, the craziness. But he was born rich. He's never been a poor man. He's never lived the type of life I've experienced. But you know what? Jesus Christ has. Jesus Christ came from heaven above. The Son came from heaven above down to earth below, lived a poor man's life, suffered the same type of temptations that we suffered, and even died a human criminal's death, unfortunately. And rose back to glory. God came down, heaven came down. God knows what it's like to be us. He understands. He has wisdom and insight. The other two more catchphrases here to pair up together. Counsel and might. Counsel is it involves a formation of strategy for leadership. I mean, but it also involves others, relying on others. You know, it's not just something that the boss does and goes on about it, but the boss understands, seeks wisdom and counsel from others. It's also somebody that has might. The king is the commander-in-chief of the armies, leads the battle. God's a mighty God, isn't he? And all the forces of evil that stand strong now will falter when he comes again. He's so powerful. Notice the other two pairings of characteristics here. Knowledge and the fear of God. Knowledge is understanding, especially in relation to God's will. And this is the expression, fear of God. This notion of awe and submission to God. Jesus in the garden submitted to the Father. Take this cup from him. But if he submitted to the Father on the cross. You know, it's important for us to submit to God, to have that fear of the Lord, that characteristic that our King will one day display. This, as a kid, I used to misunderstand this notion of fear of God, fear of the Lord. As a kid, and even as a young adult, I thought fear would be like afraid of, especially when I was a little kid, I'd be afraid of the boogeyman, or my uncles would tell me stories of going out in the woods and being taken by old Harry Jack, whoever old Harry Jack was, I don't know. Never found him. Even though I went out in the woods like I wasn't supposed to go find him. But I was always afraid of that figure. The things that go bump in the night. The fear of God is not that. God is not some distant boogeyman, some cosmic judge that's going to zap us all. Fear of the Lord is that notion of reverence and awe of who God is. God is so much bigger than we can comprehend. There's a strand of evangelical Christianity that emphasizes this notion of having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, which is true. But there's a lot of Christians that take it to the extreme of Jesus is my buddy, my pal, my friend. God's my homie. Showing my age a little bit here. For some of the young crowd maybe watching this on YouTube. DJ, don't pay attention to this. Don't look at this. Jesus is my homie. Okay, whatever. But no matter how much we have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, and have a personal relationship with God, He's still God Almighty. Bigger than we can comprehend. And this governance that He has, these characteristics that He has, that the Lord shows here one day when He will rule, when He comes back to establish His kingdom, to create a new heaven and new earth, He's going to rule like no other political leader has ever ruled, because He's Almighty God. He's going to show wisdom and counsel, understanding. Political leaders don't do that for the most part. He's Almighty God. He's different. The great Catholic theologian Thomas Aquinas put it this way: then alone do we know God truly, when we believe that He is far above all that man can possibly think of, because the divine essence surpasses man's natural knowledge. One day, a God who is bigger than we can even comprehend will come to this earth to judge the quick and the dead, to establish a new heaven, a new earth, soon and very soon. And His governance, well, His governance will be something a little different, won't it? It'll be fair, it'll be just, unlike the broken systems that we have in our world today. His governance will be righteous. Isaiah chapter 11 verse 4 says, but with righteousness He shall judge the poor and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. He shall strike the earth with a rod of His mouth and with the breath of His lips. He shall kill the wicked. Righteousness shall be the belt of His waist, and faithfulness the belt of His loins. Righteousness and justice and fairness. We live in a world where systems are broken. There's all kind of talk about I can't get a fair trial. Life isn't fair. Now, some of that's arguing and moaning, complaining. Things aren't necessarily true, but we do live in a system. Even our country, as blessed as America, as good as America is, our system isn't what it should be. But one day, soon and very soon, God will establish a fair system. A system of fairness and equity, a system of righteousness, justness. Let's look at fairness a little bit in the Bible. Fairness is talked about in the matters of business in Leviticus, in matters of law, in matters of speech, in matters of family. But see, when fairness was lacking, at least in the biblical perspective, life became tenuous and uncertain. Kings that weren't fair were often the ones who were the wicked kings. Think about King Solomon. When the two ladies brought the baby, and trying to decide, who was the right mother, Solomon and his wisdom. So let's just cut the baby in half. It's rather gruesome, isn't it? I don't think he ever had intention of doing that. But in his wisdom, he knew to be fair, to figure out who was the actual mother. The real mother would do the right thing. We live in a society that's torn to pieces, don't we? Where fairness and equity and righteousness are not to be found. We argue and we bicker. I blame part of it probably on our 24-hour news cycle. There's a New Testament scholar named Michael Bird, who is the academic dean and lecturer in theology and New Testament at Ridley College in Australia. Michael Bird is one of the top names in New Testament scholarship, and a very brilliant fellow. He's recently written a book with a guy named Tom Wright, A.T. Wright, who's a paragon in New Testament studies. But Michael Bird recently came to San Diego for the Society of Biblical Literature meeting. It's a gathering of academic professors and so on and so forth, theologians. And he said this quote. I saw this on Twitter and it kind of made me chuckle. And it kind of shows me how unfair and unbalanced our society is. So 7 days since I left the USA, going back to Australia. And without Fox News and MSNBC, I'm no longer feeling scared and angry. These news sources we have in our country, like Fox and MSNBC, that supposedly are supposed to be fair and balanced, and this 24-hour news cycle is tearing us apart, isn't it? Supposedly these sides are equitable and fair, giving both perspectives and trying to show us what's right and what's truth, but they're tearing us apart. Filling us with vitriol, filling us with partisanship. We're no longer Americans, we're Republicans and Democrats alone. That's not the way God does things. That's not righteous or fair. We're too busy arguing bickering. Even us as Christians can't get along with each other, and we slander other people because their political views may be different than us. Maybe just a bit, slight little bit. You know, we as Americans need to come together as Americans and love each other and disagree with each other and not be so hateful about it. But especially we as Christians need to come together and be righteous and fair just like our Father is and love one another though we may disagree with them. We don't have to fuss, we don't have to fight, we don't have to argue. We don't have to call names. And I hate to say this, I have a lot of respect for our president, especially for some of the things he's done in our country. Our economy is doing well from what I gather. But when he gets on social media and calls people names, this week a 16-year-old girl who's probably outside of her lane, doing things she probably shouldn't do, this young lady from Scandinavia who's big on climate change, she's stirring up all this controversy and stuff. But our president said bad things about her, a 16-year-old girl. A few days after the president's wife, First Lady Trump, was starting the anti-bullying campaign. Our politicians are crazy. We need politicians, or at least leaders, I should say, that are equitable and fair and righteous. We ain't going to have that until Jesus comes back. No matter how good we think our political candidates are, Republican, Democrat, moderate, liberal, progressive, whatever labels, conservative, whatever labels you want to call them, if they ain't following Jesus, now show them living the lifestyle, even if they claim it, ain't no 100% guarantee, is it? It ain't going to be right until he comes back. But this ruler, this great king, this Jesus who will come back, shoot up from the stump. He'll govern, his character will be well, he'll govern well with righteousness and equity, and stop the partisan bickering even amongst his people. We'll see peace, his peace, a righteous peace. There's a few verses I want us to look at today in this passage about this, and they're kind of paradoxical, they're metaphorical, poetic, if you will, about the equity that we'll see in peace. The wolf shall dwell with the lamb. That's going to blow away the whole Riding Hood story of the wolf being comfortable, being nice around the lamb. And the leopard shall lie down with the young goat and the calf, and the lion, the fatted calf together, and the child shall lead them. You say a young goat and a leopard, a calf and a lion, predator and prey. One day when the Lord comes back and he sets up this new heaven and new earth, the old expectations are gone. Things have a life of peace, even creation. The cow and the bear shall graze. Their young shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like an ox. This is poetic, this is metaphor, but still showing the type of peace that usher in. The nursing child shall play over the hole of the cobra, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the adder's den. They shall not hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. In that day the root of Jesse, who shall stand as a signal for the peoples. Of him shall the nations inquire, and his resting place shall be glorious. We live in a world of violence, of bickering, arguing, sin, theft. We live in a broken world. We're making, I think it was Phyllis last night, made an observation. You know, and I noticed this, Renee and I noticed this a lot sitting in the office, especially if there's close to the rescue squad and the fire station. We hear sirens go off about every hour. Ambulances going somewhere, fire trucks going somewhere, police sirens going off, cars going somewhere. Just a reminder to me that we live in a broken world, that this is broken, that needs peace, that needs a strong dose of God, if you will. We're not going to get that anytime soon. No matter how much the politicians promise us, how much our leaders promise us, whether it be political or religious leaders, we don't get that until one day He comes back, right, on a white horse, establishing a new heaven and a new earth, establishing a world with no more pain and suffering, no more tears. As Revelation talks about, the seas are glass, no more chaos. He'll bring in peace. The great reformer John Hus put it this way: the Lord is just and merciful. He gives peace to His own in this world and after death. God gives us peace. You know, we may have temporary reprieves in our society today. It may feel better, life may seem a little better. Life isn't much better. It's not going to be totally better until He comes back. So as I look in the paper, I look on Twitter and Facebook and on the 24-hour news site, I look out in the streets and look in the community, I'm reminded of the phrase, "Come, Lord, soon." I utter the phrase, "Come, Lord, soon." We live in a broken world, and the only one who can fix it is Christ. The shoot from the stone. We wait on a promise that one day He'll come back. We wait. We've been waiting a while. He's tarrying. One day He'll come soon. And as I mentioned Wednesday night, I've been mentioning, He's coming again. Are you ready? Are you ready for this King that's equitable and fair and just and loving and peaceful? But He's also come back to judge, isn't He? He'll judge those that are righteous through Him, I should say, through His blood, and judge those that aren't righteous, the wicked, the sinful, the lost. Are you ready? Is your family ready? Are your friends ready? Are your relatives ready? Your neighbors ready? Are they ready? Let's get ready. As musicians come and as we sing, the altar's open if you'd like to pray. Maybe you need to get ready if you haven't already.